When was the last time you went shopping? Did you notice some products were out of stock? When was the last time you tried ordering electronics? Did you face a delay in delivery? Why do you think that's happening? Because of China. It's not a conspiracy theory, it's called a supply chain crisis. Hello and welcome to Gravitas Plus. I'm Palki Sharma Upadhyay and this is what is happening in the world right now. The United States is running out of Thanksgiving turkeys and Christmas trees. Australia does not have timber to build houses. Russia does not have marble beef and octopus in its restaurants. The UK is falling short of carbonated drinks. Car makers around the world are running out of chips. There is a shortage of toys, PlayStations and Nike shoes. Why? The problem started in China in the year 2020. The Wuhan virus spread through the country. Factories are forced to close. As early as February 2020, Harvard Business Review was predicting a mayhem. It said the most vulnerable companies are those that rely heavily or solely on factories in China. Well, turns out most companies do. You see, China produces 28.7% of the world's goods. It exports goods worth $2.6 trillion every year. From toys to cell phones to laptops, makeup, bridal gowns, China makes all of them. It has cheap labor, it has low taxes. So companies invariably outsource manufacturing to China. It is called the world's factory. But in 2020, China's factories shut down. It could not supply goods to its customers who had just enough stock to last 15 to 30 days. Then they fell short of supplies. On the 14th of February 2020, Fiat Chrysler Automobiles announced it is temporarily halting production at a car manufacturing factory in Serbia because it cannot get parts from China. Hyundai had to stop plants in Korea because of quote-unquote disruptions in the supply of parts resulting from coronavirus outbreak in China. This virus soon spread, overwhelming one country after another. Factory workers became sick or had to quarantine. Production came to a halt. What happened next? A global supply chain crisis. And to understand this crisis, we must understand what a supply chain is. A supply chain is a network that helps in getting a product from point A to point B. So point A is the factory, the place where the product is made. Point B is the retailer, the place from where you buy the product. Now, getting a product from point A to point B sounds simple. It's not. Take your iPhone, for example. Where do you think it's made? China? Well, yes, it says it's made in China, but China is just one stop along the process. Your iPhone is basically assembled in China. Its parts, the parts that China assembles, come from around the world. 43 countries to be specific. So you could say your iPhone is made in 43 countries. The chips come from Taiwan, the DRAM comes from South Korea, the boxes your phones come in are from the Czech Republic. And you'll be surprised to learn that Apple does not even oversee this manufacturing process. Foxconn does. In short, a supply chain involves multiple players, tens of thousands of workers, several countries, multiple modes of transport. So one delay in one of the points on this chart, like a strike in the Czech Republic, can take the entire supply chain off course by days or months. Now, what happens if there is a crisis at several points of the supply chain? Say in Taiwan, factories are closed because of the Wuhan virus. South Korea's workers have been sent home due to a lockdown. In Czech Republic, truck drivers did not return to work. What happens then? The entire supply chain comes to a halt. It collapses. And this is exactly what was happening by mid-2020, going on to 2021. Demands were high, but supplies had stopped coming in. The United States ran out of ketchup. The United Kingdom ran out of milkshakes at McDonald's. Things got worse in the last few months when countries began reopening. People began going out again, making up for the year-long halt in shopping, checking things off their shopping list. They even began buying things that they wouldn't have bought had there not been work from home and social distancing, like home workstations, laptop tables, spare laptops, smartphones. Since the new normal needed people to spend more time indoors, they even began buying more homes and furniture to furnish those homes. While demand returned, supplies did not. Factories were still not working full scale. Not all workers had returned. Many remained unvaccinated. Many stranded on the wrong side of the border by closures. Transport workers were missing. So the market, you see, was not ready for this buying frenzy. The spike in demand first hit the shipping industry. 90% of the global trade happens via sea. The rise in demand led to the rise in the cost of shipping. It's simple economics. The more the demand, the more the price. Shipping prices rose 85.5% year on year, 85.5%. Consider the world's busiest route, China to US West Coast. The spot rate of last-minute bookings rose to $19,000. The average door-to-door shipping time for cargo went up by 70 days. And ports became overwhelmed with incoming vessels. As we speak, there are billions of dollars of goods stranded off the US coast, but there aren't enough resources to unload those supplies. With cargo containers stranded mid-sea, ports fell short of boxes. Who makes these boxes? The story comes back to China. It is October 2021, and the world needs more containers, but China's factories are closed again. In 2020, when the world needed masks and PPE kits, Chinese factories were closed because of the Wuhan virus. Now, when the world needs other supplies, Chinese factories are closing again, this time because of electricity shortage. China is running out of coal stock, prices have skyrocketed, and power plants are reluctant to buy more coal, so power supply has stopped to factories. Estimates say at least 44% of China's industrial activity has been affected by power cuts. The world's factory has stopped working for the second time in 2 years. You see, cheap labor is good, low taxes are good for business too. But what global supply chains need is reliability. 19 years ago, China was hit by a SARS epidemic. Back then, China accounted for 4.3% of the world's GDP. When the Wuhan virus hit, China accounted for 16% of the global GDP. It had grown fourfold, placed itself at the center of numerous supply chains, and set the stage for a supply chain collapse. Now, as India prepares for Diwali, many parents may not be able to give their children a toy of their choice. America will not have enough Christmas trees to light this December. In the United Kingdom, stores have already warned customers that come Christmas, stocks will be limited and discounts bare minimum. Our supply chains are collapsing. And to be fair, China alone is not to be blamed for this. Lack of alternatives, lack of prediction and preparedness. The virus from China closed factories, but the world suffered because it had not invested in alternatives. The virus from China sent the UK's drivers and farm labourers packing, but Britain paid the price for over-reliance on European labour. The virus from China put American workers out of jobs, but America's botched-up unemployment benefits are keeping them from returning to work. Supplies are running out because ports are not prepared to handle increased traffic. Australia is not being able to build houses because it does not have alternative timber sources. China is the story's villain, but it's not the only one. Look at Russia. It is gloating as the United Kingdom runs out of fuel and Europe runs out of gas. Over-dependence on any country is a bad idea. It leaves scope for weaponizing supply chains, arm-twisting nations. The supply chain crisis has taught us that it's time to rethink and re-evaluate global partnerships, create new alliances like the Quad, which aims to create alternative supply chains. It is also time to diversify global supply chains. Former US President Donald Trump had asked firms to move out of China. Japan is willing to pay firms to relocate back to Japan. Well, now is the time to remake those strategies. Also, the next time the world gives you Wuhan virus, be an India and aim for self-reliance. Don't be a US and run out of ketchup.
Okay, good afternoon, folks, and thank you so much again for joining us. We've got a shipping and logistics expert here, Ms. Irma Arch of Miracle Brokers. Ms. Irma has been in business for 35 years, and everybody on island knows that she's the go-to person if you want to know anything about shipping and logistics. So we thought that we would reach out to her here at CMR, trying to understand how the shipping, it's being called a crisis situation, is the new name for it. The supply chain crisis is going to impact us here in the Cayman Islands. We're going to get a little bit more of background information from Ms. Irma and then just have her thoughts on where she kind of sees us going with this. So Ms. Irma, good afternoon and thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me, Ms. Sandy. Yes, so far I'm seeing that between now and Christmas they're expecting some shortages. I personally think that over the next couple of months we're going to have it fine. But we're going to see where I'm seeing is we're going to have different types of things that's going to be substituted, different products substituted, which has been happening over the several months. But I do think for Christmas you should order in advance, because it's going to take, instead of 4 weeks, it might take 6 or 8. So I think that we do need to order in advance, but I don't think there's going to be in the Cayman Islands a shortage.
Right. Now, have you seen, I mean, you've been, with Miracle Brokers, you've owned that company, ran that, you've seen it all just about in the past 35 years. Have you seen anything like this, though?
Well, we've seen after Ivan, especially, we had such demand for things like sheetrock and things like that yes, we did have crisis. But through it all, we started ordering from different parts of the world. Instead of going to North America, we went to Canada, or we went to different places. So we've always been able to get ourselves in a place where we could get things that we needed. Right now, a lot of our stuff come out of Asia, and Asia is about a month or 2 behind where we were before COVID. So the building supplies and things that are very behind and much more expensive. But when it comes to the food products, I think that we're going to be okay.
Yes. Now, in the explainer video, they were saying that probably for the first time in definitely modern history, the supply chain, why they're calling it a crisis, is because COVID has impacted China, and that impacts not just Asia, but the rest of the world. And every single country, basically, all over the world is being touched by this. And so Cayman will definitely not be an exception. I think we saw some months ago where there was a shortage of the ingredients needed for like concrete and making blocks, and that, that's construction, that's building homes. And there was a delay by a couple weeks of people waiting on island to get concrete. We saw that the government actually made some legislative changes to make it easier for it to come out of some countries. But the reality is, based on what the experts are saying, this is something that everyone is going to have to go through all over the world. Is that right?
Well, cement, for example, is mostly out of Central America. And I think they've gotten that sorted out now to where we're getting it on a weekly basis, so that's fine. What's happening in China is that the containers are all over the world, and because of trucking problems, they can't get them back to the ports. They can't get them loading on the ships. And so that's where the problem is. There's not a lack of containers, there's a lack of being able to get them to where they're supposed to be.
Right.
So that's what I'm seeing. I represent Zim, for example, which is one of the biggest companies out of Asia. And their problem is their containers are all over the world, and they can't get them back to get them loaded to get them back to the Caribbean.
Right.
So,
and then there's an actual shortage of materials, raw materials. There was an example given with the iPhone where basically they're saying, well, this part comes from this place, and the box might come from Malaysia, and it's assembled in one country and packaged in another. And all the countries are having logistical issues with trying to get stuff where it's supposed to go. So your advice is definitely to think ahead in the coming months about what you need, whether it's a car or Christmas items or housing, furniture, whatever, and plan way in advance of that.
yeah, I mean, I think even Chevy had stopped production a few weeks ago because of chips. Something as simple as that, not a tire, not a engine, but a chip. So yes, you have to really plan with time and know exactly how long you're going to need to get the stuff locally.
Right.
Definitely. And of course the prices have gone up probably by 30 or 40% on most of the things as well.
Now, you were telling me before that, give us a little idea when you talk about the prices have gone up, so that we can put this in context, because I think sometimes in Cayman, we think that we control what happens in this market probably more than we actually do. So shipping containers, give us that example of what's the average cost of shipping containers now compared to pre-COVID times. Is it tripled? Is it doubled?
Well, luckily for us, out of North America, the containers are relatively the same. They've managed to keep them down because the shipping companies are very intricate, very involved with the island. But when it comes to Asia, where we don't have any control, the companies have gone up like about at least 60%, 70% on the containers coming through Kingston. So the car prices have gone up, and also the merchandise.
Wow. And that's a real trickle-down effect.
Yes,
for sure.
For sure.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Ms. Irma, for taking a few moments out of your busy day to speak with us. So again, folks, the bottom line here is to plan ahead, order early. I think Dino said it best earlier when he said, listen, if you can shop local, then obviously you do that. You support your local businesses. There are local experts on island, such as Miss Irma, Eric over at Aeropost, and others who will understand a lot of what's happening behind the scenes logistically. So if you need any advice or you're concerned about, when you order something, realistically how long it might take to get here, definitely speak to one of them. We've got coming up next some of the grocery stores who are going to speak to us about what's happening on their end as well. Thanks again, Ms. Irma.
Thank you for having me.
Hey everyone, we are here today to talk with Dino from Aeropost. There's been a big concern around the world, and of course the Cayman Islands is no exception. We will be impacted by this as well. There is a chain supply issue, or they're calling it a chain supply crisis actually, that is happening as a result of goods being, delayed out of China. So you've just watched a video about kind of how that has happened because of the pandemic starting early last year. And now we're going to bring some local experts on. Dino is he's the Miami partner for Aeropost. Of course, Eric and Irma Arch are the local Cayman partners in this business. We're going to speak to Miss Irma a little bit later on as well. But listen, they've had their ears on the ground for many, many months now about the situation, and they've known that this is coming in our direction and that this would be impacting us. So we're going to bring Dino into the conversation. So good day, Dino, and thank you so much for joining us here on CMR.
Hello, Sandra. How are you? Thank you for inviting me.
Doing very, very well. So listen, this is something that's impacting us, the consumers. You're a consumer, I'm a consumer, but you are also in, a very unique position because you are in the logistics business. So tell us, as someone who's in the logistics business, when did you start to notice that things were going to be impacted, and how has it been affecting your clients?
Right. Well, we knew that things gonna be different as soon as we got deep into the pandemic situation last year. As you know, because we manage crisis situations all throughout, in the Caribbean, hurricanes and Florida, and the flooding in the US, so on and so forth. We kind of know what is going to happen after each situation. And usually the logistics is able to supply because the supply chain is intact. So everybody from the world is able to come through and help. This time, as soon as COVID started, we knew that the world gonna get disrupted, and we knew it wasn't gonna happen immediately, but it was started to be noticed, and right now is what I always say: this crisis is forming the perfect storm during this high peak season, because the COVID created all of the problems with. Of course, the pandemic, everybody in quarantine, the economy is shut down, lack of power, staffing, work power, people not returning back to work. Everything started creating issues, small issues in the supply chain. Then started the shortage of containers, added to the backlog that we had months ago on the Suez Canal, from all of these backlogs that we have when a ship just crossed over and got stuck on the canal, and it was like a week and a half of backlog. All of that has still created a chain crisis, situation. Now right now at this point, we are in some retailers. When I speak with them, they are in 6 months behind on their orders.
Wow.
So they are dealing with inventory that they have in existence, but the new inventory hasn't come, and some of the items delayed on 6 months. On the parts, there are no parts for them to either, for the electronics. I have friends that I have manufacturing here, and they already sold their products. They cannot give their products, and whenever those products that are sold to other manufacturing companies are broken, they cannot get the parts. So everything is falling down ugly. So, and now we are facing the high season. the shopping season, what would really interest us, as a logistics company, sending small packages, online shopping to the region. Well, it, when we were talking, it's like shop now. Don't wait for the holidays. That's exactly this, because now there's the experts are talking that the situation is going to be worsened during, even before Thanksgiving, and it's going to last 6 months to a year. So
Wow.
it's going to be critical, and in the way that in my experience for the online shopping, I would say, shop now, because later it will be impossible. So
Yeah.
the supply chain, the logistics is going to crash. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm not the one that is saying that. I'm repeating everything that in all of the reports, all of the news, all of the logistics meetings and calls that I'm in, everybody talks the same thing, and it's gonna happen. Sadly, we're gonna have it's gonna end, and it's gonna go back to normal. But it's gonna take 6 months to a year. So that means that bye bye our peak season, high shopping season. So we need to be smart, and we need to start shopping now, or we need to even buy local. I'm a believer that we have to protect our economies. So each country have to look into alternatives. Hey, there are other things that we can buy, maybe not online, not in the United States because they are in
Right.
shortage, or not in China. What can I buy in the island that I'm gonna make my wife happy, my son, my daughter happy? And if not, I need to really shop online fast
Yes.
before it gets too late, because what is gonna happen is the normal thing is that, hey, where is my package? Where is my ring? Where is my iPod? Anything, and things gonna get delayed from the source, from the
Yes.
manufacturing to the distributors to the logistics to everything. So
So let's just break it down, Dino, because this isn't a situation where it's just like one manufacturer that's having a problem. We saw this video where it's literally, and that video did such an excellent job of explaining how the process works. So sometimes even a single product, the manufacturing of that product and how that product is put together requires multiple people in multiple countries doing their part. So it could be packaged in one country and certain parts of it assembled in another country and shipped from another country, and it all has to come together. So what we're talking about here, and why they're calling this a chain supply crisis, is because it isn't just affecting one country. I mean, the source of it obviously stemming from what's happening in China, but that then impacts all other countries. And of course, the United States is impacted by that. A good number of their goods come from China. The Cayman Islands, we rely heavily, we are an import community. We don't manufacture anything other than our people, I guess, here in the Cayman Islands. So we definitely have a serious issue where ultimately, we have to rely on the importation of a large portion of our foods. But I like your suggestion there, Dino, that perhaps we could think about, even for the holidays, there's a lot of things that we could do to shop local. So even before the pandemic, there's been this, attempt to revitalize certain industries, and especially around the holidays, Christmas time, local retailers encouraging people to shop local where you can, keep that money in the local economy. And I like your point that sometimes it might be, maybe it's something that we can have handmade. Maybe there are some small things that are manufactured or made here that are available. There's nothing on a large scale, but we could certainly look to offset the issues that are being created by this supply chain crises. But you're predicting, and the industry is predicting, 6 months to a year before we, as I guess we start to maybe emerge out of the COVID crisis, we start to come out on the other end of this. That's quite crazy.
and it's a lot of time, and it has
Yeah.
never happened. That's why I call it the perfect storm. It's
Yes.
just it's not. I'm 35 years in this industry, 20 years with FedEx and 15 years with Aeropost, and never seen this before. Well, never lived through a pandemic either. So
Right.
that this is a unknown
Very unique.
territory. But
Yes.
what we know is now how the shortages are falling down onto the lines that is going to cause a breakage on the supply chain. and we can determine how long it's going to take. So, the positive side is 6 months to a year. That's the positive side, because it can be worsened if something else happens or the pandemic is not controlled worldwide, stuff like that will continue. So these are the unknowns. We are learning to live with the COVID through good behavior, respect to others, so on and so forth, but it hasn't been resolved yet. And that's the issue.
Okay. So, folks, Dino, again, is part of the Airpost team. So from the perspective of people who are looking to make purchases overseas, we're now 2 months out from Christmas. Your suggestion would be shop now. If it's available, shop and get it now.
My first is shop local, because that also helps the local economies. We are in 40 countries and we are locals, and our families are there, and we love our own economy. So that's the first thing: shop local, support your own merchants, your own economies. Then I'm in the job of logistics and e-commerce. So then if you have to shop online, then you have to think in advance and shop immediately now before it is too late, and then you get disappointments.
Okay. All right. So 2 months out. There might be a lot of parents out there, folks, who are having to deliver. You're still playing Santa to your kids. You're having to deliver on those presents. Dino's suggesting, if you can't, shop local to make sure that you give yourself that little extra headway. For some retailers, even in the US, it may already be too late, because some of them, as Dino and others have said, have already realized delays. Shipments that they were expecting to have in by Christmas just isn't happening. So you might be out of luck. Hopefully, maybe Amazon can help out. Dino, just remind people as well that you do have on, as part of your Airpost platform, the ability for people to go directly to the Airpost website and shop. And the benefit of that is what they see there in terms of the price is the landed price, including customs and duty and everything. Is that correct?
Yes, and that is correct. And I would suggest you better off now thinking smart in the time of shopping, because as we overseas shoppers shop on Amazon, eBay, or anything, Walmart, anything, if something goes wrong, then you have to deal with their retailer, and that's far away, and they're having their supply issues and everything. But if you shop on the same stores, but then you link the items towards the Aeropost site, and Aeropost gives you a fully landed price and one checkout. So you are checking out in Aeropost, then your issue becomes local. If there is an issue, you can always come to us and say, guys, you haven't got my package by X time, and we're going to explain. But then you have the option to say cancel, and we're going to give you your money back, instead of you fighting it to all of the retailers throughout the world. That's the benefit that I see in Aeropost. Not because I'm Aeropost, it's because they have that solution that really helps consumers. And that's a plus that nobody else has.
Absolutely. Okay. All right, Dino. Well, thank you so much. Again, we're going to be speaking with other industries here in the Cayman Islands about how this supply chain crisis is impacting them and their ability to get goods on island. We understand that it's impacting all sorts of stuff, from construction materials, all the way through. So, Dino, thank you so much, as always, for being willing to participate in the conversation as logistics and e-commerce experts.
Thank you so much for the invitation. Thank you all.
Okay. Folks, and thank you for joining us for another segment here on Cayman Mall Road. So as you guys know, we've been interviewing a number of individuals about this chain supply crisis, is what they're calling it, and trying to get an understanding on what this is and if it will actually have an impact, a meaningful impact on our lives here in the Cayman Islands. Of course, we couldn't really address this topic without speaking to someone in the grocery industry, because let's be honest here, the most important thing that we import, and we import practically everything here, but the most important thing that we import is definitely our food. And we can't starve, right, Woody? So we are wanting to know, we're speaking here with Woody Foster, CEO of Foster's Supermarket. They're the island's largest grocery stores. Is it 5 or 6 locations, Woody, that you have?
Well, it depends if you include East End and Price Right, with 6 including Price Right.
Okay, so including Price Right, and Price Right does sell food, so yeah, 6 locations. So yes, folks, so they have the island's most grocery stores, and I think even the largest grocery store with Cayman Bay the Cayman Bay location. And so, Woody, going into the pandemic, I know you and I have had conversations back in probably the summer of last year. We were talking about the difficulty of getting certain things. I remember toilet paper, paper towels, and cleaning supplies, Clorox wipes were definitely at the top of the list. So I think for a minute, we have understood that there have been some supply issues, but it seems like now it is a broader discussion that is being had. What has transpired between, as the pandemic kicked off last summer, early last year and into the summer months to now, some year and a half later? What have you seen happening with supply of things on the grocery side?
Well, it's supremely better than last year, certainly during the height of the pandemic. Whenever I have this conversation, the numbers I use, and these are just sort of very, very loose numbers. But let's say if in any particular store pre-pandemic, if we had 400 out of stocks in a store, during the height of the pandemic, that could have hit as high as 2,500 or 3,000 out of stock items. And then now it's dropped down to, let's say, 12 to 1,500. So markedly better than during the height of the pandemic, but still much worse than it was going into the pandemic. So we still have lots of problems, but nowhere near like they were last year.
Right. So I suppose that's good news, that it's not worsening.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some of it is because variety is changing, right? So the manufacturers, to be able to keep up, because whether it's labor shortages, supply shortages, ingredient shortages, whatever, they're having lots of problems still. And so to be able to keep up, they're reducing variety. So if a particular manufacturer had 100 items, maybe they're only manufacturing 60. And so like the 40 fringe items, they'll just not manufacture them at all, so they can focus on their better items. So which creates out of stocks and reduces variety.
I see. So fewer choices, but trying to really consolidate their efforts and focus on kind of what the top sellers probably are in any event.
Yeah, which again is really the reason for this call, and it's everything is connected, right? So if you think of traffic control and you have an accident, it just backs up traffic for miles. Well, that's just one accident. So in this scenario, not only do you have the accident, but you have a shortage of police, so it takes them longer to get to the scene. You have a shortage of tow trucks, so it takes it longer to get the car off the street. There's just a shortage of everything. So instead of having to deal with one accident, you're now having to deal with all of the things that are connected to that accident, so instead of taking 1 hour to unfurl the mess, it takes 12 hours to unfurl it, because everything is in a mess. So labor shortages, ingredient shortages, shipping is taking longer. A factory in China may have an issue with COVID, so the factory is out of commission for 2 weeks. It's just everything.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I saw a video which we played last week on, I think, one of our morning programs, of like 100 or more ships docked off of California waiting to try to get into port, because that's just how backed up, things were. And it was just an amazing sight to even see that, because I don't recall ever seeing anything like that before. So there is, like you said, it's just this trickle down effect. It's this domino effect that's impacting everyone. Drivers in the UK, as we saw some weeks back, were having, issues, and that the fuel issues, the trucking supply issues, everything is impacting consumers at the very end, but it's throughout the entire chain supply. So you're not expecting any food shortages going into the holiday season. So am I going to still be able to get my turkey?
Well, turkey is an interesting one, actually. We have to buy ahead turkeys as much as 6 to 8 months in advance.
Oh, wow.
Well, we start placing our turkey orders like right into the new year for Thanksgiving. So it's actually longer than that. We got a call from our supplier that said, listen, we have your turkeys. They're earmarked. However, I suggest you buy them, because there's a shortage and they could get sold. We'd be sorry, but you still wouldn't have your turkeys. So I suggest you take them. So we have, so our Thanksgiving and Christmas turkeys are here. We have them in hand. I know at least one of our competitors has theirs as well. So there shouldn't be a turkey shortage this year.
Okay.
Hopefully we bought it.
Again, plan ahead.
Provided we bought right, there shouldn't be a shortage. But so no, there shouldn't be any major shortages. Like one item that we are having a major problem with is chicken. Chicken is very difficult. If we order 100 items, we might get 20. And it's a constant issue week after week, and it doesn't appear as if it's getting any better anytime soon. So that doesn't mean that we don't have chicken. It just means that we're having to do different things. Like we're having to buy frozen product to be able to make sure that we have it. So like our Tyson tray pack is our biggest problem. That's our fresh product that we buy fresh and sell fresh. And we're having to supplement that with buying frozen chicken because we just don't have any other choice. So things like that we're having to do. But should we have any food shortages outside of what I said before, where there'll be some variety issues and maybe this won't be here, but that will be here, we should be fine. No,
Right.
Anything could change. It's a very whacked out world we're living in right now. So
Yes.
I think people need to be a little bit more lenient on people that make prophecy, shall we say. So I'm assuming that we should be okay, but these are very interesting times.
Yeah, a lot of unknown variables. So one thing I know for sure, Woody, is we have a lot of chickens running around in Cayman. So if push comes to shove, we can have a chicken call and we'll be okay for at least a good year.
We do buy local chickens. If strangely enough, we do buy some local chickens, but it couldn't supply our market though.
Yeah, we might have to get creative because I've got at least 10 I see in my yard every morning. So hey, that could feed me for months. Woody, thank you so much, as always, for being willing to come on the program and to just keep our viewers up to date on what's happening, especially, like I said, in the grocery industry. You know, people just like what they like in terms of products. Like I find that for myself, I will drive out of my way. So sometimes I go all the way to the Cayman Bay store location, which is probably one of the farther stores for me, just because I'm looking for something specific. And I think that if they have it there, then I'm going to go there and shop. So I know people get very attached to brands and to liking a particular thing. But as you've rightfully said, during these sort of unpredictable and, somewhat perilous times, you've got to be a bit more flexible and willing to maybe understand that you're not going to have all of the available options. But thank you again so much for coming on the program and contributing to this conversation.
Can I say one thing?
Yes.
Last year, I made the same comment, and I'll make it again this year, which is Cayman generally, and I'm including my competitors in this, is that we really punch above our weight, if you will, in terms of how we keep our stores stocked. For a tiny little island, we have a fair amount of, we get very good customer service from our suppliers in the US. And I think that says a lot for us as a country and the job that we do. Because I had a store manager who just came back from vacation, and he said he went into a number of stores while he was away for 3 weeks. And he's like, wow, we look better than most of the stores. And these are public. These are good stores. These aren't just little independent locations.
Right.
So in terms of not wanting to create fear and people looking at the news and talking about supply chain issues, I can assure you that we have done, and again, this isn't self-serving, I'm including my competitors in this, is that we have done an amazing job in terms of keeping the island fed throughout this pandemic. And based on anecdotal and just information from our suppliers, they are doing an amazing job in keeping the country fed. And I don't see any reason to why that would change, barring something disastrous.
Okay, awesome. And just FYI, we had reached out to some of your competitors to come on the program. They said, no, let Woody do it. He speaks for all of us. He does a fantastic job. So they're happy. They're happy for you to be the spokesperson on behalf of all the grocery stores, apparently, even your competitors. So again, Woody, thank you so much for that just reassurance that we are in good stead and onward and upward, as they say. So enjoy the rest of your day.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Stu.